Good morning. This
Good morning.
is the Bring Your Own Identity collaboration of RChain, Divvy, and others in developing identity for our communities and ultimately for RChain itself. And it's 11 a.m. On June 10th in New York. I'm in Florida. So, you want to give us a brief update, Ed, where you are?
Did I do any work on it? Let's see. Glen and I talked briefly with Drummond Reed on Sovereign. It was mostly an introductory kind of call, but he provided some links that I didn't have before, which were helpful. It went into more of the I think it's called the Sovereign Trust Framework. The previous document I had was also good, but this one is more detailed and more specific. And we asked him after the introductions, just to make sure that Sovereign didn't require sort of a centralized kind of approach, and he assured us that's right, is their intent. Although they have their own blockchain, which we didn't sort of dig into details, all the reasons why that's the case. But Sovereign is creating a public permissioned ledger. So that is kind of in a different quadrant if you look at public, private, unpermissioned, permissioned. It's allowing that those it's assuring that those all the identities have some minimal self-sovereign I don't know what you'd call it, trust, and that that it'll support both self-sovereign as well as an attestation-based identity. So, so far, I felt good about that answer, and that that model continues to be an inspiration, in part because how well they've documented the ontology and so forth. Maybe there's others out there that are that clear, but I really I haven't seen them just because of the limited amount of research I've done, perhaps. But I really respect the way that they've done that. So
I've found that too in my research. I agree, Ed, that and even with this latest document, the tightness of their specification is, every concept they brings up just it points back at similar, all the concepts are well defined and they're all cohesive together, and that's really great.
I've rarely seen that in documentation, actually.
Yeah, it gives you a good impression that they're. I was just reading Drummond's background. He's got 12 years of experience working on identity, so there's a lot of depth there. One thing you were talking about, the self-sovereign aspect. Some things that I've found that support that are, of course, one is just the notion that everyone's identity is a key that's generated. You don't have to go to another authority and say, please give me one or give me another. You can generate them yourselves. There is a dependence on the network. So if you just have one of these alone, well, yes, you could generate one, but the value does come from your participation in the network. And that network is a group of entities that have signed the various agreements that form that network. And there is a board, there is a centralized organization that's going to approve or not approve of your status within that organization. So it's not completely open to anyone to participate, as open as in absolutely no one could deny. But at the same time, there's a lot of openness. That's certainly their intention is to have it open, but they also reserve control. There's governance around the network itself, and so you could look at that as centralized or not. But
Well, yeah, it certainly has more centralization than Ethereum or Bitcoin do. But I mean, they intended that more as a bootstrapping mechanism. I think of the nodes, the security of the nodes, than policing of every record is the intent.
Yeah,
gathered.
I would agree. I think they would go definitely against their policies that would deny anyone an identity, or to deny anyone the right to make their own claim about their identity or anything like that. I think that would definitely go against their.
I think participation in the network is the main thing, and
right.
If we follow the guidelines, they would have no justification to deny us to run a node and participate in the network.
Yeah, that's what I've also found too, is that their scheme, it opens up to having other networks. So their scheme is they haven't defined all of that, but in turn, I mean, that's sort of a future scope as to exactly and precisely how that would work. But their design is set up to be open to that.
Right, and it's all open source, so there's nothing to stop us from running our own network. You know,
yeah, it's either participating in their participating in their network. Of course, you're right. You then would have to sign their agreements, or even building another network on a different platform like RChain that would tie in and be meant to work side by side.
Yeah. So I mean, the reason they're using a distributed ledger that's not a blockchain. It's it uses Byzantine fault tolerance for consensus. Very simple process, very quick, because of the number of transactions they need to handle. It's very it's and it's scalable. And these were two requirements they had. I forget what the name of the chain is called. It's not really a chain, but a very interesting choice, and it's fairly immature technology in some ways. So that
that's a risk.
I'm not sure what their timeline is, but we can run the software now, or commands against it. They have very simple things what to do, so it's definitely worth experimenting with and trying and seeing what utility is there that we can take advantage of, at least in the short term.
My main desire with Sovereign is to use their model as inspiration to build an RChain holding company product for identity.
Right.
That's the way I'm looking at it currently. So it's a little bit longer term view of some product that wouldn't come to market until a year or so from now. And if it happens to interoperate with Sovereign or to take slightly different shape, or to be the new underpinning for a Sovereign version 2, or something else, I'm open to any of those possibilities. But I just, at this point, I just want to emphasize the respect I have for Drummond and the work that the associated teams have done. There's Evernym, the company, and Sovereign, and what's now becoming Hyperledger, or is already Hyperledger Project Indy, which is they clone Sovereign, and now Sovereign is actually a fork of Project Indy, the way I understand it. So they're, at the moment, I think they're one and the same in terms of the implementation, but we're very close to being the same thing. I wanted to queue up more discussion about Uport when we get a chance.
Yeah, that's my intermediate term things, to use the model of Sovereign to build Uport identities. Starting with the Uport as a base for a self-sovereign identity, adding the pieces we need, particularly to develop, in my view, the webs of trust.
Yeah. I signed up for the Uport Alpha, but I never went beyond that stage.
Yeah, me too. I ran it to see the QR code and past that, it did not integrate with any other service. And the last time I tried it was a few days ago. The gave me a message the beta was done or alpha was done. That's as far as I went to.
Well, you got farther than I did, but I have been looking at the Google Plus group, and there's many complaints about trouble with installing or running on a particular device and so forth. But on the uport.me page, it still has the sign up for alpha link. So
okay, maybe it's per, you get so long per user or something. They want new. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah.
Okay, but apparently there is a lot of confusion about the alpha on the Google Plus group. So I mean, they do call it an alpha for a reason. So I'm not.
Yeah. It's in development.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to some extent, there is a code base of stuff we can use there. We can at least use the contracts, which are at least those that are well vetted. The thing is, we can start using it without them having a product. It's essentially just a data structure that we're using, and it's well thought out, so it's worth following.
Well, if from the cooperative's perspective, and you may have written this down and covered this in earlier sessions I wasn't a part of, so I apologize if I'm repeating things you've already been over. But help remind me of the primary goals of the cooperative with respect to identity. What are the first things that are needed?
Well, as you mentioned in the, well, the first thing is single sign-on, in my view.
Yeah. So something like, MetaMask or any other Web3 client provide that.
Well, I mean, we need to have an open ID or something to, have the single sign-on go across all of our services.
And a single sign-on to what? To a vote, something to vote on, a voting platform, or?
Yeah, I mean, we can require Uport, but OpenID is what we use to all the open source tools that the community may use, that the membership may use as part of their activities for task support and decision support and whatever. What we're looking at is Cloudtron, for example. And in Cloudtron, okay, what is being developed there is a library of applications that we run ourselves where we're not being observed by anybody, that we can basically install as easy as installing an app on our phone, and so the community, for example, can run the tools themselves that they want to use, that are tools that are not exposed to a third party. My point was that you want you don't want to go into your chat and use a different login than in GitLab or your blog. Okay.
Yeah, I agree that.
Now, an open would solve that for the platforms that we have now, although I'm not sure. I think we're moving off Slack, so we can easily install a
Yeah, I happen to be personally
chat.
fine with Slack, and I may not move to another platform, but that's kind of a community decision.
I found that Mattermost is really a great solution. You know, it supports, you know, I have tabs for all my communities. They have apps for every device. Uh, the uh, uh, so you can have multiple teams in each community, and no, each one of these is run separately by people who are running instances themselves, and they can have a full set of teams, and in each team they have channels, and Slack users move to it really easily. And that's not, shouldn't be the topic of this, so I'm sorry for this digression here.
Well, yeah. So again, I want to understand the key requirements of the co-op with respect to identity, and so the you know, the registration, the authentication to platforms for discussion and for decision making. I you know, there's some short-term needs. I'm actually more interested in the long-term needs. As the co-op grows to, you know, hundreds of thousands of users or more, you know, what kind of platform would be required, especially one for voting, which, you know, so, you know, at some point there'll be difficult decisions ahead at membership meetings. You know, this one coming up in, is it October? Is the first, probably won't be contentious and not a huge number of people. But the year following, it might be really interesting. There might be some tough decisions, you know, go left or go right on this particular decision. And then the membership will matter. And if I can, for example, you know, buy 100 votes with $2,000 or whatever, and significantly affect the outcome of the membership. That's an important problem that we avoid and so forth.
Well, you know, I am some of my colleagues, Stephen Paul King and others that are working on the, you know, using artificial intelligence, you know, to detect Twitter bots or you know, multiple people and unique identities. And you know, there's going to be a lot of progress in the next couple of years in that area. And I think, you know, RChain will be a perfect place to run these algorithms that do these things. But you know, I mean, from a practical point of view, there's really, you know, we really have to provide an open ID to users and some kind of Ethereum identity. You know, those are the two first requirements, and then we want to provide UMA, user managed authorized access. Okay, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel so much, but you know, we will need to stand up a open ID provider and provide open IDs to the membership, and integrate them insofar as we can easily with our other tools, Discourse and whatever else we're using at the time. I think with Slack you have to pay for that. I don't know. You want to use OpenID or LDAP or whatever for the membership, you know, giving us a single sign-on into all of our things. as much as we can. I don't know. Glen, do you have an update? I think I've.
Well, what I was just thinking about, how about the current process of joining to be a member? To Ed's point, it sure seemed very possible to create multiple memberships from the process that I followed.
Right, and this comes down to in stage one. Okay, first of all, you can eliminate multiplicity of anyone, of the group of people that all have the same, have provided, and we verified some form of identification, in terms of address or social security number, whatever. You can eliminate groups from being as being unique within a group. And then we have our webs of trust. We each know 6 people and we give them attributions. We grant them attributions, and that creates these webs of trust that and I'm not trying to solve the problem here and now, but the approach that I suggest is developed from this, and there's a lot of stuff like the reputation networks, the badging, and other things.
Sure.
Can add dimensions to this uniqueness. And then we have artificial intelligence coming out the other side. I mean, as we grow, the problem becomes bigger, and there are techniques for doing it. Where we
yeah,
and we can. A lot of it's going to be done sort of manually within these webs of trust, either online or readily. I mean, it may be perhaps proving you're a unique member could be made a policy of membership, and there would have to be a consensus mechanism. And I'm suggesting sociocracy. Okay, in sociocracy, you very rarely have to go outside of the circle to make a decision. And there's links between the circles that ensure that the whole system has integrity.
I'm not familiar with sociocracy. I'm familiar with holacracy.
Yeah, it's the holacracy is sort of a form of sociocracy. I mean, I'm using sociocracy in the loose sense of interlocking circles or teams or groups. And then, the wisdom of the crowd can be incorporated into decisions as well by, getting.
Yeah, I've looked at. Why can't I remember the name of that software? It's built by some guys down in not Australia. New Zealand. I think I set something up for us, but I didn't follow past that. Why can't I? There is different software that is usable to help get to consensus, not blockchain consensus, but to human consensus. But
yeah.
in terms of governance, yeah. But okay, but sociocracy has nothing in particular that's going to, if I understand correctly, that enforces a unique identity that's true and accurate.
No, but if you're connected to everyone else, by 6 people or 3 people or 4 people, okay, and you go to both hangouts and you see the same person, it's likely that they'll be discovered to be the same person. And
Sure.
When we're employing the wisdom of the crowd, okay, we can, in essence, weight the votes of individuals by the probability of them being unique. So even if we don't have 100% uniqueness, we can still get the get a fair vote without 100% uniqueness anyway.
Interesting.
So, anything else?
I guess yeah. Yeah, those are possibilities. I guess it would take some doing to establish trust that process was trustworthy. To especially if it is to Ed's point there about a vote that.
Yeah. Well,
because if you were one of those listed as perhaps a high probability of not being unique, and yet you were, and you could imagine some consternation.
Yeah.
I rebooted my box on my
You're back.
It's a Frontier Fiber box outside my house that just goes for whatever reason. It's time to replace the box, I think. I don't think it's the service side, but and I don't think it's an electrical spike that causes it, because nothing was happening in the house at the moment.
So I didn't even notice you were gone. I was answering the issue of uniqueness and how some kind of demonstration of uniqueness can be demonstrated as a condition of membership.
Yeah.
Okay, and there, what happens is we get circles of information, like everybody who has a driver's license number in the U.S., or everybody that has a verified a home address or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you can algorithmically combine these, and we have the circles of our own circles where we know people, and we've seen them, and we participate in multiple groups, and we. Yeah.
So web of trust is. There's many ways to demonstrate identity. Yeah, web of trust.
And I guess the final point was that we can use the probability when we're getting a solution using crowd intelligence. Okay, and we're experimenting with processes to do this in Digilite, which is really cool. Join digilite.com. But we can weight the responses of people by a probability that they're unique in order to get what we consider to be a fair response, and give people a responsibility to demonstrate their uniqueness. And it doesn't take much to do that. I mean, if you have a person has a particular just the social IDs of a person, if they prove that, then everybody that does that is can be pretty much considered unique, right? And you have that community, and then you have the other community that you have the mailing addresses from, and overlap where you have both. Well, never mind. I'm not going to give you I'm not going to try to give the algorithm. I'm just saying we can. There are ways to deal with that uncertainty if the artificial intelligence hasn't progressed to the point where we don't have to worry about it.
By curiosity, does the membership policy of the co-op expect uniqueness of the individual, or can anyone create as many memberships as they wish?
That's a good question. There's obviously something in the bylaws, but I haven't read it with that question in mind. There's a related question, which is, can companies be members? So, because from a legal definition of person, oftentimes company entities are included in that, and I think the answer should be yes, but it's actually a great question to debate. And also there's the concept of, is there just one class of membership in terms of benefits and voting rights? So you could imagine, for example, that companies might be fine to collect the credits that end up back to patronage dividends. I'm interested in that because, you know, if one of the RChain Holdings applications pushes a lot of traffic through, then why not get credit for that? But for voting rights, it seems like the cooperative should be as people-oriented as possible. But not, you know, not necessarily, but these are great things to debate. So I think the bylaws will need some revisions in one or more of these areas, or a membership agreement will need clarity around these. Hey, I'll be right back. I need to get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I mean, when I've looked at the sovereign documentation, they do create different groups of members. They have a technical advising committee. They have a board of directors. Even to have an identity, you need to sign an agreement, or, well, I don't know about sign, but there's an agreement for just identity holders. Developers of applications that use a client to the network, they have to enter into an agreement. And there are obligations for each of these different roles that are spelled out, and so they've thought through that. And then, of course, that's just that's in support of the network. Well, even just to have an identity, to hold an identity, there's some level of agreement, and then, of course, participating more in the network, owning, running nodes, being a trustee, being an agent that may hold other people's identity records, also requires a set of agreements that they go into. I don't know about how their foundation is formed in terms of what rights each of those have, what their voting rights are, that type of thing. You can kind of guess from the names, but explicitly what rights and privileges each of those roles have, I'm not sure. I was just talking about what I've found in Sovereign's case, where they do have explicit agreements that people must go into, even to be an identity holder.
Yeah.
But then all the way up to board member, and then developers that develop using the technology need to enter into agreements, and they have all a set of obligations that they must meet. So they've defined these various roles that people play within the organization, and they definitely do separate individual from organization. And both of those classes of entity can be identity holders, but they separate that out from an individual to an organization.
That's awesome. That's a model that we want to follow. In terms of developing identity, it's like designing for privacy is something that the application programmer even has to be aware of. You can't build a system that is going to be private without the application being privacy aware. So the roles and the rules and stuff is really awesome. Now, a simple solution to the organization problem is that organizations don't vote. but there can be members of the cooperative in the organization. That simply eliminates the problem. There may be a better way. I believe that, good decision processes may involve multiple stakeholder groups where it's okay for a person to be in multi-stakeholder groups, and it means that they should have 3 votes if they're in 3 stakeholder groups, whatever. But that's another story. For now, we can just simply restrict it to individuals if they want to. If an organization can be a member, they can be eligible for dividends and other benefits as an organization, but only the members in that organization that are members of the cooperative vote. Okay,
so I don't want to. If there's a point where I can ask a question that's a little bit off our current line of discussion, let me know.
Okay, well, we can just add it to the agenda. Why don't we make it agenda item number 1? You want to type it, or you want me to type it?
I guess it's just a more question for conversation. Maybe this isn't the right place. I definitely will do my own research. Just a poll. Do you guys have knowledge of zero knowledge proofs? Do you have a mental understanding of these things? Do you have a model that?
This is essentially holographic encryption. You remember holographic encryption they talked about for a few years, where you can actually run algorithms on a encrypted piece of data and get the answer, but not the data itself.
Yeah, homomorphic.
Homomorphic, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, homomorphic. Yeah. Duh.
I see. So that you can think of the actual raw data is always in your possession, even in an encrypted form, to protect it, and then a relying party that needs a conclusion from that data can provide I don't know the right word. If it's proof, I don't know the right word, but they send you some code, perhaps. I don't know what they send you.
Yeah, let's say you had 2 numbers, A and B, and they were very long numbers, and you did the math, in the clear locally, and then on the blockchain it does the math, A plus B, and what it shows through is a few of the zeros, right? And let's say it's hashed or encoded, and it shows a few of the zeros that you can see. So then you can prove to yourself that the A plus B and whatever hashing or algorithm happens after that, where the zeros are the same as what the blockchain came up. So it's showing you enough that you can prove that both the blockchain or whatever that engine is, as well as you have the same.
Okay, so you okay, well, I was thinking in terms of data items that would, I don't know, let's say a date of birth you keep to yourself, but someone wants to know that you are 21.
Right. So there'd be ways of I'm not an expert on this, and it's a complicated math area, so I'm not going to become an expert anytime soon.
Okay.
But yeah, that's exactly the kind of
okay, so they can trust, you can provide some sort of trust that yes, you meet the requirements of that statement that you are 21, but you don't actually give them your age.
Right.
You don't actually give them your birth date.
Right. So yeah, you would exactly. So you would need then to some trusted validator of your birth certificate, in a previous or whatever, or your driver's license from some previous arrangement that says Yep, we trusted either the DMV or this trusted notary that they notarized your information, and that's their badge of your date. And and this algorithm looked at that date and said, yes, you're over 21. Something like that.
Okay. Okay. Because that's part of the sovereign specification. They have both the public-private key pair type of encryption for like a signed statement, and then they also have this zero knowledge proof approach.
Mm-hmm. I think it requires.
So there's a lot in this model. I wish I had kept more notes here. Maybe I'll watch this again. What I put on here was a question, and really, do we want to cooperatively run a glue server, OpenID, and user-managed access at idp.freetrust.net with Divvy, CodeCloud, and digilife.com. Essentially, that's the legacy of this group, is that it was, testing a glue server on freetrust.net. And due to the lack of other system administration people besides myself, we haven't gotten a service running, but we certainly could run one, and we can test it with multiple realms for
so is your thinking then like an officer or officers of the co-op would have privileges that membership, that an ID in that system gives you, there'd be a one-to-one, each member would have one ID in that system?
Correct. In the RChain realm, there would be multiple realms on the machine. We would be giving only certain RChain people any power in the RChain realm to do anything or see anything. I mean, that's sort of the experiment we're running. Can we do that reasonably? Or do we all have to run our own servers, which we can do. We can basically export any test data we have if we want to and import it into our own server. The issue is really, do we want to join this collaboration to run an identity provider?
Yeah.
Or not?
Does the co-op have any policy around? Let's say there were a vote. Do they have any policy that says that? Let's say the vote were on October 1st, so 10/1. Do they have any policy that says that you have to be a member in good standing by, let's say, 1 month previous, by like say September 1st, and so it could be like members need to there's a way to prove their valid voting status beforehand, so you can kind of before the vote figure out really who has the right to vote and what is the total membership.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing anything like that in the bylaws. I think there needs to be a membership agreement that states that, or perhaps even a bylaw.
Some way to really know exactly. Yeah, right. Okay, interesting.
No, I think that's a good point. So can we switch to UPort discussion? This Jim, were you done with the glue idea, or you want to talk more about that?
Well, we'll get down quickly to UPort.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I wasn't following the agenda. Anything additional on glue?
Yeah, I don't know if you have any comment on that. I mean, I think it just makes sense to do it cooperatively, since it's none of us really have the resources to do it alone.
Well, I'm interested in Ethereum-based identity and I'm interested in Sovereign. So far, I'm not interested in Glue, and OpenID may be great, but I don't see how it fits in with what will become RChain. But
yeah, well, the login for Sovereign for the login for Sovereign is OpenID.
Oh, it is? Okay.
So you don't have Sovereign without OpenID.
Well, okay. That's the Sovereign implementation. Again, I'm looking at their model, but I think it's great if people have time to run Glue, to run Sovereign, to run UPort. I personally don't have time to run Glue.
Right, and neither do I, to be responsible for it, which is why.
I think because of we want to stay. I know no reason why we wouldn't want to stay close to Sovereign. At least tracking what they're doing. That standing up a Sovereign node is interesting to me. To support again, my time is to be focused on fundraising.
The last time I looked at it, the only thing they were offering was a command line interface. They didn't have a login.
Okay.
The login would be OpenID. But I'll certainly look into that.
Yeah, I think their provisional network starts this summer, runs for a few months, I think is their schedule, just from my memory.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
You know about the login? I mean, it's OAuth, which is basically OpenID, right? So, I mean, it can't be something else. But I'd like to see what they provide in that area. I haven't really looked into it.
So will an OpenID server such as Glue implement OAuth or OAuth 2 successfully? You said basically it's OAuth, so does that mean?
OAuth is the underlying protocol. Okay, OpenID is more about, how you get,
the structures on top. Okay.
Between the login box and the OAuth and the delivery of the service on the web, whereas OAuth is the general tool, OpenID is the general.
So OpenID is a convention payloads on top of OAuth.
Yeah, if you're running WordPress or something else, it speaks OpenID, which basically does an OAuth, right? So that it's gives you the single sign-on. Otherwise, you're not going to interface everything directly to Sovereign. Well, you might. Okay, and the other thing quickly is the I guess we're running out of time. The MIT Solid server, which gives us the OpenID and the WebID. There's reasons I want to do that. I guess I presume that you would have the same, not be too interested in that at that point. Are you familiar with the web access control lists and WebID, Glen?
Conceptually,
no, I'm not.
No, well, there's a lot of reasons why I'm considering that use case. Okay, let's get to you for it. I haven't looked into the exact details of UPort for some time. I didn't do that till last week. I like their use case where, basically one line of code, you can log somebody in. And I thought that was really cool. And it allows for keeping multiple persona under a unique identity, which is what we want, is unique identities. And the different persona include They choose things like a Twitter account and a Facebook account and a GitHub account and other things. And my intention is that we can provide an indication of the strength of an identity without revealing all the personal information.
Yep.
UPort is, I think both UPort and WebID should mirror, the identity structure to some extent. It shouldn't be nailed to a particular environment. It should work in every environment. That's a complete identity of an individual as opposed to some aspect of it.
Yeah, I think I understand.
So what are your questions about UPort?
Well, I'm just now installing the alpha. Have either of you installed it?
Yeah, I can give you a little demo, I guess.
Is there, can it be used now for some testing that's interesting to the co-op? So
the test cases they have are not that interesting, really. They're just showing that it basically works, and it doesn't always work. I mean, the site has been up and down.
Okay.
But that's about. I guess that's about in essence, the JavaScript libraries to support the Ethereum structure, which is contracts. And I think we can look at those two separately and say, okay, we're going to adopt the contract, but whether we're going to use their code or not for a login, we haven't decided yet. I mean, we could write our own code for a login, whatever. But I mean, it's an open source world, and we don't know what's going to be released tomorrow. I mean, one day MetaMask was the best thing since sliced bread, and the next moment parody was.
Well, both of those, I was going to say both those support the Web3 quote unquote standards, but yeah, actually, there are slight differences where MetaMask supports some features that aren't in Web3 that are actually quite interesting. One is called, I want to say it's like a local sign. It's where you can sign a transaction that doesn't go to the blockchain. So just simple login with MetaMask is you can do, and I'm not sure you can do that on Parity without spending some Ether. But I could be wrong. But I think that's not in the Web3 standard. That's in another JavaScript library. But yeah, so I have just installed MetaMask. I'm sorry, not MetaMask. I had that installed already. I meant UPort. Okay, so I'll go through this onboarding process. So Jim, what? I assume UPort is only on mobile. Is it also on web apps or client install?
Well, it's using your device to log into the web or another app, but it currently does require a separate device in order to work. Now,
I installed it on mobile.
You can run it. I mean, you can use it in any app. Okay, if you look at the sample of code on the uport.me page, okay, it shows you how you can use it, how you can call it in an app. Now, in uh, you know, if we were using the glue server, we would basically have to write a Python script to invoke this function, because it's not, you know, it doesn't run in the node environment.
Mm-hmm.
But a service, you know, a private service for that is trivial, more or less. You know, you can basically log a person in with one line of code.
Uh-huh. So I've got
It seems to me that a person could create multiple of these. That
Absolutely, but you know, we've only proven one Ethereum address from them.
right.
And you know, if that's connected to the viewport identity, then
Yeah, I see that they list UPort credentials. So there would be this. I assume you would associate these credentials with one of these identities, if you will, that you've created, and then I guess that's listed as coming soon. So allowing business and apps to provide users with signed data that they can use throughout the platform. So it looks to me, at least from just reading their website right now, that that's in progress. So that then the co-op, for instance, could rely on one of these credentials, one or more of these credentials. Is that fair? Is that how you think it would work too?
yeah, you know, we would, you know, use a separate channel to connect a member to a UPort identity. If you look at the contracts I was developing for membership, the UPort ID was part of the data structure of those contracts.
Okay, so with UPort, yeah, so looks like the functionality they have already is that you could write a website, for instance, use your mobile to scan the QR code that the website generates. The client and the code on the website communicate through the Ethereum blockchain to produce a proof that it's really you. Do you know if every login requires one call to the? Oh, it doesn't actually. It doesn't. It's not a. It's a local call. It doesn't actually require gas, I'm guessing. You think that's true? So to actually log in doesn't require gas. To establish your identity does, but once that's established, it's probably not. Doesn't require gas.
I don't.
It just looks. It just looks at the value already on the blockchain. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't know those things. The I'm just adding now some contacts off of the UPort Alpha site. People post their QR codes to you know, connect with them. So you know, it's essentially creating a social graph,
right?
And I suppose that the login is going to be similar. That, you know, one of the social graph, I don't know that, but one of the social graphs would be the site, and then you could essentially, once you establish that pairing, your application, or there's a handshake there that the application, I don't know if you'd call it pre-authenticated or registered with the site, and probably exchanges your minimal ID, like perhaps like when I registered for my site, I put my Alpha, I put name and phone number, so it may have exchanged those credentials with the site or with these other people that I'm connecting with. I don't know.
Yeah, the UPort will tell you what information is being requested and will be given, and you will authorize to be sent. Okay, it's not meant to be, you know, everything a complete authentication system, it's only device authentication. Well, it's device and knowledge because you have a password to open the app on your phone to authenticate.
Yeah.
It's our intention that a biometric will be included as well, which is voice, face, both, fingerprint, iris, whatever, and depending on the level of security needed, okay, in your profile, so to speak, you specify what factors are required for someone to act as you for a certain security level. And so we envision that the authentication process will be tailored to the individual. We may have certain requirements cooperative, but the user can always exceed those requirements for someone to assume their identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. So I'll read more about BYOid. Now I understand a little more about it. And I've been reading the discussion on their alpha site. Cool. Hey, I'm going to need to roll off in a little bit. What's else on our list?
Okay. The only thing that we didn't cover in the course of things here, I think, is the bounties, and I guess this may be seem a little silly to you, but we do have bounties available for this project in AMPS, ROC, and Divi. Okay, as part of the Divi project, there's a 10,000 Divi budget that we have to spend as a circle, and we've approved 200 for Ed for the presentation, and we've allocated some for ourselves, and we'll add Glen to the team.
Yeah, just I noticed that you announced my membership last week or the week before about me being on the team. I'm not sure what on the team means, but I'm here to consider how this impacts products for RChain Holdings, but I'm not necessarily signing up to every objective the team may have.
Well, I put you in as research.
I just don't want you to expect more from me or potentially Glenn than we're going to actually do. That's all.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm hoping at some point that to get the and I haven't been really active. I mean, we have the tasks in the identity thread in GitHub issue, the GitHub Epic, and at some point we're going to be, I guess, allocating rocks for different activities. And if you guys are just advisors in this group, that would be the double linking that we need to make it an associated circle.
Well, I'm happy to attend these when I can, because I learn a lot from it. So, and I'm just saying there's multiple objectives going on.
Yeah, and that's the intention, and we might want to split the group at some point.
Yeah.
To focus more on to have the focus more on RChain as opposed to supporting the membership, which is, I guess, the main work product that
Got it.
other than the design for RChain that we have, which is to, you know, I realize you're much more interested in the one than the other. All right. Well, I thank you so much for participating, and I think, you know, that people on the team who couldn't make it are going to benefit from the video.
Yeah. I put into the document a link to the Sovereign documents. I didn't have that link before a couple of days ago, and so.
Okay. Is this the new stuff that you were reviewing, the latest and greatest? Do you have a link for that?
Yeah, I just pasted it into the
Awesome.
I guess, comment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I meant to ask for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care, Glenn and Jim.
All right.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a good morning.
You too.
Afternoon.